All right. Well, I believe we're live. It starts a little slow sometimes, but we have a special guest on. We have Ron Cacini on. And Ron, I've known Ron since I've been about 10, 12 years old. And he's been a coach to me since I've been a little kid and still coaches me in a certain way. You know, it helps me with just talking baseball, really knowledgeable. And Ron, it's just a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, I appreciate the invite, and I can't thank you enough to be able to share some fun information today with everybody. We're excited here in Illinois. We've got a new behind me, as you'll see, the Health Performance Institute, which is a branch of the Illinois Bone and Joint Corporation. We're real excited to be starting a new thing here in Illinois to help kids of all ages, pros on down to youth athletes, work with their mindset, their mechanics, as well as their performance training. So again, thanks for having me on, and I look forward to talking today about the pre-pitch routine and kind of more of the mindful and mental side of the offensive side of the game.
Awesome. That's what we're excited to hear what you got. If you want to get started, we'd love to hear what you think. I know you and I talked a lot about the pre-pitch routine or the mental side of the game ever since I've been a young baseball player. But I know the one thing that stands out is what pitch to look for, right? And we would always, you asked me, remember when I was young, you said, what's your favorite food? And I said, enchiladas. He goes, well, that's what you got to hunt. You got to hunt for those enchiladas. And I always loved it. It always stuck with me.
That's
Since
it.
I went through high school, college, and pro ball, but
I'm kept sure you hungry. It kept you hungry for hunting strikes. I love it. Right.
That's right.
I think it's so funny. Like, you know, the detail that I start talking to, especially with like young players, like, you know, you get these young athletes, they might not even know where their batting gloves or their bats are sometimes in the dugout. And that throws an at bat off right away in the dugout. Right. So, you know, keeping it as fundamental as knowing where your batting gloves and your helmet and your bats are is pretty important. Like obviously in the big leagues, you don't have anybody hiding your stuff. You've got nice bat racks and helmet racks. Right. But when you talk youth sports, you know, little Johnny might be missing his batting gloves and he doesn't know where his bat is. And next thing you know, it's affecting the at bat in the dugout area. Right. So, again, I talk to guys a lot about, you know, come in, get ready, get a little drink of water, make sure you've got yourself prepped in the dugout. You're visualizing the pitcher, you're watching the pitcher and his tendencies or her tendencies, right. In the girls' game of softball. So, you know, you're in the dugout preparing even before you get to the on deck circle I talk about. So hydrating, watching pitchers' tendencies, making sure you know where your stuff is, kind of important. On deck circle, you see a lot of numerous, you know, routines from the standpoint of swinging a weighted bat, right? Some of these guys have all different types of weighted bats in the on deck circle. They probably even do a routine with their pine tar, right? Putting some pine tar on there, rosin. I'm sure you had kind of a little bit of a routine that you did with the, you know, even the stick, right? The tar, depending on what kind you used. I think the on deck circle was an important time to be breathing and kind of visualizing and seeing things, you know, in that standpoint too. And then obviously now you're coming up to the plate. As you're coming up to the plate, you're trying to clear your mind as much as possible, right? From the standpoint of, hey, I want to get a good pitch to hit hard. I try to tell everybody, get a good pitch to hit hard. But I do think things creep in there. You know, Tim Anderson the other night, for example, right? He had a great at bat, you know, at that last inning, and it was phenomenal to see him come through for his team in a crucial situation. But he said in that at bat, I knew what was coming. I saw that pitch coming in, lefty, came into him, boom, home run. Now, mind you, his next at bat, the next night, it was in a crucial situation. I really thought, if you review and you watch video of him there, I thought everything was sped up. It didn't seem like he was prepared as much as he was to just react, you know, in a game-winning homer versus when he kind of, you know, rolled over a ground ball and ended the inning with runners in scoring position, you know, on a night again that would have been nice to have that game winner. So I think outside the box, you know, breathing, visualizing a line drive up the middle, inside the box, you know, if you're overthinking, you know, we call paralysis by overanalysis, right? Next thing I know, I'm not loose. I'm not trusting my preparation, and I'm swinging at, you know, bad pitches because I'm overthinking, so to speak, right?
Right. That's I mean, I think the key thing is it slows it down, right? It gives you that time to slow down. And Ronnie, I think you and I talked about it, or you showed me an image or something, but like when you're on deck and you watch the two guys, the guy that's hitting and the guy that's on deck, it's almost like they're doing the same thing. They're in unison, loading. And I think like the on deck pre-pitch or the on deck plan that you have translate directly how you're going to have your at bat. I mean, you could be fiddling around and not doing anything and just kind of like, or thinking too much, like you said, the over analysis creates that paralysis. If you're thinking instead of like getting into it, creating some rhythm and some timing while you're on deck. But Ronnie, I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
no
you
doubt.
remember talking
Yeah,
about.
and I think one thing that's kind of been lost in the shuffle over the last few years is I think kids don't spend enough time trying to get some kind of sense of timing on deck. Like Ron just talked about. You prepare yourself with your gloves, with your pine tar and everything. But once everything's set and now we're watching what the tendencies of the pitcher, we still have to have some sense of when he's getting started. Is he slide stepping? Does he have a short stroke with his arm? And I saw it a lot this past summer with our teams and trying to get them to understand, look, on deck, there comes a point in a time where you get timing off the pitcher on deck, so you don't get surprised when you're already up there. You've already done it 3 or 4 times, even in the dugout, hey, this guy's got a really, really long stroke with his arm. So I may need to start just a tick later. And again, just trying to develop that plan of attack or through your timing. But yeah, you're right. And then we talk about dancing with the pitcher, being in unison with him. But it's something that I think we need to continue to promote to kids and preach to them, that you've got to have a feel for when you're getting started off the pitcher, because timing is everything in hitting, in my opinion. And if you're late, then that's when our mind starts rushing. That's when our body starts tensing up, and then that's where bad decisions become prevalent. So,
Right. I agree with that 100%. And also, while you're on deck, I think it's important to know the situation of the game, right? You should almost know the signs that the coach is going to put on before he puts them on, because you need to be thinking, if this guy hits a double and he's leading off the inning, I'm looking to drive the ball up the middle or to the other way to get the runner over. You got to be thinking in advance while you're on deck, right, Ron?
Yeah, no doubt that preparation for that's important. And I think that kind of leads us into the positive self-talk and kind of giving yourself what you want to have happen, right? Obviously, we all know right now with everything that's going on in the world, positive self-talk is such a mental health piece and component that we all need to practice. When self-doubt creeps in, when the fear of failure creeps in, or you're feeling down because your last at bat was not a good at bat, right? And there are players that go through these streaks that have a hard time getting themselves out of those streaks because again they get into that almost feel sorry for yourself potentially, or just again that handling of failure, right? And I think obviously the game of baseball is a game of failure. We always talk about it, that we're seeing guys that are 2 for 24, right, playing in the big leagues, making a lot of money, right? And so there's a lot of failure out there. And I think if we can use things, get a good pitch to hit, I'm prepared for this, I'm a good player, what got me here, I'm a big leaguer, I'm the man. Like you see guys now like Tatis and different players that don't lose a step because they've got the swagger, man. And as much as these younger kids, we kind of sometimes think that they're Hollywood, so to speak, or we see these different things. But when you have confidence, that definitely overpowers some of the lack of mechanics or deficiencies sometimes in things, because they've got that mental edge, right? We talk about that mental edge. And so again, positive self statements to yourself prior to coming into that plate and hitting. Hey, I'm going to hit this ball hard, I'm prepared, I did the extra reps, right? And I do that a lot with my young athletes as well as my older athletes. I think the older athletes, they've got a lot of habits that they build, and it's tough to build that into them because they do expect to be perfect, right? They've done so well for so long. And man, at the big league level, Ronnie, you talked about timing, right? Man, when you got a guy like Stroman or a couple of these lefties I've been watching, what was it, Castor yesterday with the Yankees yesterday, and some of these guys they're delaying their deliveries, right? They're they're doing things to upset your timing, and so video preparation is, really a big part, I'm sure, at that level. And then once you face a guy like that, you hopefully have a little bit of his tendencies, right? But I love kids that, like Petey Pedroia, right? He was the big one where he'd adjust his batting gloves in between his swing to kind of regroup, right? We call it the wag in golf, right? To kind of stay loose, right? They do a little waggle, right? You talk about players with signature moves, right? I know Ronnie knows this guy where he used to do all this, right? With the Pirates,
Willie Stargell.
Right, Willie Stargell. You had, this guy here. Who was this guy? Played with the team Adam came up with.
Joe Morgan.
That's it, Joe Morgan. You got, the other free swing routine. Here's another one.
Will Clark. You can't get me yet, man. You can't get me.
So, right, Ichiro. So everybody's got their routine, and we're talking about some guys that are Hall of Famers, right? That kept good routines that allowed them obviously to have success. And again, Andy, your background obviously in psychology and sports psych. I mean, what do you think about meditation? This is a big thing now in the game of baseball. We saw with this Gwinnett University with Coach Sheetinger, they won the big NAIA, and he's big with meditation. And I know it's starting to catch on with Jager Sports, and Al has been talking a lot about that. What are your thoughts on some of that, as far as practice?
Oh yeah. So meditation is really valuable because it brings you to a place of stillness, right? It brings your mind and calms your mind to this place where you can get complete control, right? And that's why meditation is actually really difficult for a lot of people, because controlling the mind for a series of time or a long amount of time is really difficult. If you think about it right now, if we were all be quiet for 2 minutes, try and keep your mind on one thought, it's really challenging. And so it takes practice. But the interesting part is when you're hitting or fielding or any part of the game, your mind really likes to race about all these different thoughts. And so that's the other interesting part, is your mind can, and we talk about this all the time, or at least I love to talk about it too, is that your mind can only think of one thing at a time. So what happens is your mind is thinking about striking out, is thinking about what if this happens, is thinking about the stands, is thinking about all these different areas, when really your mind should be focused on, maybe one, maybe two things, right? That's seeing the ball hit the bat. We're keeping it really simple, but the meditation part helps you be able to do that when you're in the moment. So I think meditation is really just a system to help you control what's up here. And if you can control what's up here, then you won't really get that nervous, because all your attention is on seeing the ball into the bat. So I love meditation. I think it's super valuable for any player of any sport, because you're able to control what your brain is thinking versus letting all these other things, that impact what you're thinking. It's powerful.
And so how, for that, how, if nobody's done this meditation or whatever you want to call it, get in that headspace, how often should they do that to actually benefit from it? If they've never done it before, if they're not in tune with it, they don't understand how to do it. First of all, how do you start it, and how often should you do that?
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast or this webinar and you're like, okay, meditation, what do I do? All I would say is most meditation focuses on your breathing, right? So try and put all your attention on your breath and breathing the air in for about 4 or 5 seconds, breathe out for about 4 or 5 seconds, and try and keep all your attention on your breath for 5 minutes, and start there, or even start with 2 minutes, right? So I think, and then working your way up 2 to 4 to 8, or however much time you want to spend, but start really simple and really small, and then work your way up. That's what I would suggest. It's kind of like any skill, right?
Right. And it completely translates. You can put that right into the game, right? You can use that tool that you've practiced and generated And it doesn't have to, obviously you don't have 2 minutes to breathe in the batter's box, but it can take 10 seconds, right? To focus on that one breath and then get back to what you got to do. Get back to that one thought in the batter's box, right? And that's pre-pitching the situation.
Oh yeah. So what you do is you practice at home breathing, and it takes, a few minutes, right? But what happens when you get in the batter's box, all it will take is, a few breaths, right? So you're on deck, right? You're coming up to hit, you're taking a few deep diaphragmatic breaths that brings the system to that place of calmness that you need to be, or that place of readiness. And then boom, when you go to hit, you'll be ready, or at least significantly more ready. So Ron, does that answer?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
what are your thoughts?
And you see players take that breath. You'll see players take that breath. They'll look at a focal point like the barrel of their bat, right? I know, Adam, I remember people talking about looking out at the foul pole or a different focal point, right? And then coming back to where they want to be, but yeah, I think this is one of those pieces that has been under practiced and underutilized. And I think that we're going to start to see more of this. Like I said, Jaeger Sports, Alan Jaeger, and the guys at Gwinnett University in Georgia, small NAIA. I mean, these guys won a national title, and he made sure that, Coach Schieninger, he's a great follow, by the way, guys. He would religiously do this before games, with the team the entire season. He's doing it before practice. It was part of their plan. Every practice before every game, they did it. And I think whether they were down, whether they were up, it didn't matter, because they were always at that even keel, right? We talk about trying to keep that heart rate, from elevating and stuff. And, I'll be the first one to tell you, as a fiery Italian, right? Like Tommy Lasorda, right? At the end of the day, you got to try to calm the heart rate. It'd be interesting to see, scientifically speaking, about the data of some of the best hitters of all time and how they actually do slow their heart rates at the plate. I always thought that would be something if they were wearing a heart rate monitor. That's the PE guy in me, Adam. Guys that don't know, I've been teaching PE for 26 years this year. So I'm coming closer. I want to get back coaching baseball with you guys eventually. But at the end of the day, I've been doing a lot of PE. And so when we talk about the heart rate and, getting the heart rate up for running, we do talk about it with the kids, that when they're playing a game and they feel failure, or, they do something where they're unsuccessful at it. How do you then try to calm your heart rate down, or,
So
breathe?
I got a question though, that's a great point, because how do you simulate that? How do you simulate that real game feeling in practice? Because if you don't practice it, how are you going to know?
Competitive. I'll be honest. I think one thing I do, and it's just a gift that I've had, is that I do, like, when I'm in the cage with some of these young men and women, I kind of push them sometimes. I get in their head a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I make it competitive. BP's competitive, right? If I lock in and I just throw them a perfect pitch every time, I make anybody look good. Ronnie, I'm sure, you throw a nice BP fastball to Adam Rosales, perfectly pitched, right? He's going to rock it out of the ballpark every time. But when I'm mixing it up and in and down and away, right, trying to get him to chase, right, and do those kind of things, I think that's the next level of, challenging hitters to prepare for the competitive at bats, right? I mean, these guys now, they're throwing harder. I mean, we were talking about it the other day. Joel Toribio, who's our pitching coach here, who played with the Dodgers, he was a high 90s guy. And I keep seeing everybody throwing harder and harder and harder. And I'm like, and then these pitches are moving all over different zones, right? So you better be able to hunt the fastball and hit the fastball, because all these other pitches, I mean, it's tough to just sit on certain pitches, I would think. So I guess the best way to prepare would be to have competitive situations where you're, challenging a hitter, not just making them feel perfect all the time,
Right.
making them feel a little bit uncomfortable at times, to try to say, hey, how did you handle that uncomfortability, right?
And that's the key. Like when you pre-pitch a situation, you have to understand how to handle uncomfortable situations. The key is just slowing it down, and to do it in practice and to bring it, to implement it into the game is essential.
No doubt. I have a question. When I saw the where you're the director of player development, Health Performance Institute, and I always talk about it with kids and trying to find a balance with players. We talk about the mind, the body, and the soul. I always talk to kids about that. The mind and the body are huge in baseball, but the soul, I think sometimes is, and we talked about it last week about how the emotions affect it because of the outcome. And to me, those are three things that are really important. How do you handle that, Ron, as far as trying to get them to understand, you want guys healthy, that's a big part of it. You want guys mentally in tune, but also the emotional part of it. How do you handle and how do you help kids with things like that so they don't get on that roller coaster?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that happens is, especially young players, they're trying to do their best to satisfy mom and dad, right? They want to have success for mom and dad, man. And sometimes, again, moms and dads out there, everybody wants their kid to be the best and do their best, right? And so perspective is so important. Having two collegiate athletes myself, one softball player at Dayton and then the other one with volleyball, I look at both of them, and was I the easiest dad at times? Probably. No, I wanted to take them to the games. I wanted to, push them to be their best. I wanted them to be on the best travel club teams. I wanted them to have the best training, right? But at the end of the day, the one thing that stands out that I try to help the kids understand is that really you're playing for you to be your best and to feel the best about yourself, right? And that, at the end of the day, you're the one out there playing the game. Win, lose, or draw, 3 strikeouts versus a 2 for game or a 3 for game or 4 for game. Just remember that you love to play the game and that you're going to have the ups and downs, just like in life. We all have ups and downs, right? With things we handle. And I think the younger players especially have to understand, hey, you're not trying to satisfy everybody, right? Play for the best you so that you can feel good about things, and obviously be a good teammate. Play for your team. Play for, the what's across your chest, not the back of the chest all the time too. And that makes you feel good as a teammate when you're able to do things well for your team. But Ronnie, we're in a game of analytics and statistics, and you get paid more to hit home runs. You get paid more to have a better ERA. And so you get paid to get a scholarship on some of those things, right? Whether we like it or not. But I'll tell you this, I know that coaches cross kids sometimes off the list if emotionally and they're throwing gear or they're not a good teammate, right? Or they're beating themselves up or their heads down. And I know Adam and I are really excited about a young man that I told him was coming. He came out of my old academy, Brett Harris, who's playing with the Lansing Lugnuts with the A's, right? And I'm so proud of him. He's hit a couple of home runs here early, but he's one of those young men that, you talk about the soul, Ronnie, he's kind of got that. And I've told people about that. He knows that a lot of it's out of his control. He just lets the game be. He just, he lets the game be. He plays the game, right? And he's going to let the chips fall where they may. Every game, he's going to do his best to be his best. And whatever happens, happens. It's out of his control. Now he's also a big believer, right? In God. And I think that does help a lot of us that, if we have a good soul and a good spirit about positivity, those things come about, and they handle things a lot easier. But hopefully that answered the question. I tried.
No, love it. That's a great point.
Yeah, there's a certain element about letting go of what you care about so much helps you to perform in the moment, right? Like when you let go of there's almost like this paradox where you care about this thing so much, right? Let's say getting a hit or performing well, and then letting go of that and being like, all right, nothing else matters. I'm just going to do my best. And it helps you to release this anxiety and stress so you can perform at your best. Excuse me, at your best. So it's kind of an incredible thing that happens to us when we're performing, where letting go is super powerful.
That's an interesting phrase. I never really thought of it that way, but I think you're right about that. Just letting things it's hard for us because we all want to bring our best. We all want to be so perfect, right? In what we're doing. And I like that. Let it go. I might have to put that on underneath a couple of bills on my hats, to remind myself of that,
Well, you work hard, you work hard, you work hard, and then when it's go time, all right, I did my
That's
best.
good.
Here we go.
No doubt. Well, listen, I want, if there's any other questions or comments, obviously the best way to reach me for everybody is my email here at rcacini@ibji.com. Again, rcacini@ibji.com. I know you guys have been an incredible resource and are starting something really special. And I want to thank my daughter, Alyssa, and obviously Adam, Ronnie, and Andy for inviting me today. I wish you guys all the best with this. I think parents need this as a resource. I think the players obviously need this as a resource. There's plenty of help that's needed out there, and you guys are doing a great thing. And hopefully we can continue to spread the news on again, focus on some of these things outside of just the mechanical side.
Yeah, Ron, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on. And as always, I learned a ton from you. And I know all of us learned a lot from you today.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ron.
Appreciate it, guys. All the best. Have a great day. Peace.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
see you later.